This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and it's Smackdown time between two Dell 13-inch laptops. One of them is a 2-in-1 convertible, so an important difference there. Anyway, this is the Dell Inspiron 13 7000, the 2016 edition, and so it's at the high end of the Dell Inspiron line in the 13-inch size category, and the price butts up against the Dell XPS 13. Right here, again, this is the 2016 Skylake edition. Costs more. Is it worth the extra spend? We're going to find out now. Well, the first thing that you're going to notice when you take a look at these is they both have aluminum casings, which is lovely. Price starts at about $750 for the Dell Inspiron 13 7000. The one model that we just reviewed is indeed the base model, Core i5, 8 gigs of RAM, a 256 gigs SATA 3 SSD, and a 1080p touchscreen for that price. Not bad, right? Dell XPS, of course, is their high line, their most premium, and of course you get the metal casing. You get something a little different on the inside, whereas the Inspiron is aluminum throughout. You get this spiffy carbon fiber and black interior here. It's very nice. I like the way it feels. Again, it's a little bit more premium finish, but beyond that, considerably more expensive. Now, Dell recently added a 1080p touchscreen option to the XPS 13. When we reviewed it, there was either a matte non-touch 1920 by 1080 or a QHD plus 3200 by 1800 touchscreen option. So now there's one in between. For $999, you can get the touchscreen 1080p model, which is commensurate in terms of resolution and having touch with the Inspiron. And you'll get 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gig SSD. Now, Dell doesn't list using PCIe SSDs until you move up to 256 gigs for storage. So 256 gigs, more storage in your Inspiron for less money, $999. But look at the difference in the footprint, too. If ultimate portability is important to you, in general, 2-in-1s of the flippy 360-degree hinge variety aren't going to be from you because they always weigh a little bit more. So 3.68 pounds and a normal 13-inch footprint for our Inspiron on the bottom. The Dell XPS 13, the big deal about it when it first came out, and it still is that it has the footprint more like of a 12-inch laptop, and it's almost a pound less, 2.8 pounds versus 3.68 pounds. You'll notice the difference in your bag. But I'd be remiss in mentioning what's going to be the most important thing for some of you, but not all of you. The XPS 13 is a traditional laptop. It opens up like a laptop does. It goes from here, it goes this far back. That's it. The Inspiron 13 is a 2-in-1. All of the Inspiron 7000 series model, except for the Gamer Edition, that's a different animal. They're all convertibles now. So it opens up, you can do it flat, you can do a tent, you can do a tablet mode. So for those of you who think you might like that for watching movies, for drawing with your finger, for editing with Photoshop using your finger or a capacitive stylus, there's that. There is no official active pen support, and there's not even any unofficial. It has what seems to be a mostly disabled Synaptics digitizer in here. So this is not a pen product either. But I know some of you think the convertible thing is kind of nice, and at 13 inches it's a manageable size. So there's that important note, regardless of how much you want to spend or don't want to spend, difference in functionality there. Now when it comes to keyboards, the keyboard experience is actually almost identical. Well, no surprise, made by Dell, and they're both, relatively speaking, on the higher end for what Dell offers. Both of these are very pleasant to type on, nice tactile feel. No rattling, no clickies. Both have a slightly matte finish on the keys, but it's not too grabby either. But the one thing I don't like about either of them is the 1.3 millimeters of key travel. It's quite short. You have to be okay with short key travel, a little bit abrupt, a little bit of I wish I had shock absorbers on my fingers kind of feeling. Both backlit in white. They both have precision trackpads, Microsoft Precision trackpads, and they both work equally well. Our particular Inspiron 13 has a very stiff clicker, which I'm not fond of. Having to push that hard, your finger tends to veer off target, but maybe it's just this particular unit because our Inspiron 17-inch edition doesn't have such a stiff clicker on it. The Dell's is just perfect. It's a very, very nice trackpad. And of course you have the different interior finish. The carbon fiber feels nice against your hands, but I don't think anybody's ever going to complain about having an aluminum deck, and the aluminum actually shows fingerprints a bit less. When it comes to ports, neither of these are superstars in terms of the number of ports. Obviously for the XPS 12, it's more constrained by being an absolutely tiny little 13.3-inch laptop. For our Inspiron, you get a USB 2.0 port, okay. I would like to see all 3.0. I keep complaining about that. Maybe Dell will listen. Full-size SD card slot right there, lock slot. They're both going to have a lock slot. On this side, you have USB-C 3.1. Huzzah, huzzah. That's a good thing there, but it is not also Thunderbolt 3 for those of you who care about that. Right now, there's just not a lot of Thunderbolt 3 peripherals out there. The main interesting thing would be the Razer Blade Core, which is a little bit of a challenge to get working in terms of drivers and stuff anyway with the laptop, but USB-C 3.1 will be pretty universally useful, so it's not the end of the world, and this is less expensive, so you're going to get more stuff on the XPS 13. We have full-size HDMI here. We have a USB 3.0 standard port, and of course we have the usual combo mic headphone jack here. The XPS 13 is almost a mirror here on this side for ports, the SD card slot, but this is a USB 3.0 port over here, lock slot again. And on the other side, we have that USB-C 3.1 / also Thunderbolt 3. So there you go. The Razer Blade Core would work with this in theory. It's not going to work with the Inspiron. For those of you who want to add on killer external gaming graphics, another USB 3.0 port, and of course the headphone jack. And this little button right here shows you your battery charge status. Again, a nice little frou-frou extra for your extra money there. So how about displays? With the XPS 13, you have your choice of actually 3 different displays. 1920 by 1080 full HD non-touch matte display, which is really sweet looking if you have no desire to touch your screen ever. You know, using Windows 10 is a little bit more pleasant when you do have touch, but then there's the new 1080p touchscreen option, also full HD. And then what we have here is the QHD Plus IGZO 3200 by 1800 touchscreen. So much higher resolution as an option. Of course, you're going to pay for it if you want that higher resolution. You're looking at least $1,100, $1,200 or more to get up to that price range. Again, $999 if you just want the 1080p touch, and you can get it a little bit cheaper if you don't want the touch at all. The Inspiron 13 has a 1920 by 1080 glossy IPS screen, the touch obviously. Both of these screens are the same size, though they might not look it. It's just because that near bezel-less design on the XPS 13. So you, the bezel police out there who are very vocal, are going to say, oh, them bezels on that Inspiron, couldn't buy it. I leave that up to you as to how you feel about the presence of bezels, but 2-in-1s always have bigger bezels to support the display panel and to give you a place to grab onto to use it like a tablet. So you get the idea. Now the IGZO panel that we have on the XPS is too cool. The blues are kind of, well, really blue to, instead of having that kind of warm, slightly magenta, a little bit of yellow that you're seeing on the Inspiron. So the Inspiron is actually from the factory a little bit more color accurate. You can calibrate that IGZO high resolution XPS 13 display though and get it under control. And the 1080p display is actually a little bit more balanced out of the box. The XPS 13 displays are a bit brighter. They have BIOS auto brightness kind of built in, so it's a little hard to defeat that and to actually even measure it with a colorimeter, but it measures a bit higher. 245 nits of brightness on the Inspiron versus 300 on the XPS 13. Honestly, they're both pretty nice displays. The color gamut is going to be higher on the XPS 13. You're going to get something for your money there. You're going to get full sRGB coverage, 75% of Adobe RGB if you're talking about that 1080p display, versus, you know, about 66% of sRGB on the Inspiron. Performance and horsepower, well, that's almost not a thing here, and that's because they're available largely with the same exact hardware. Intel Skylake 6th generation dual-core 15-watt Ultrabook CPUs with Intel HD 520 graphics. Now, the XPS 13, if you want to spend the bigger bucks to get the really high-end model, there's one with an even faster Core i7 and Intel Iris graphics for a little extra oomph. You can get it with up to 16 gigs of RAM. The Inspiron, you can do that. Honestly, the benchmarks would be the same if you're looking at a Core i5 versus a Core i5 or a Core i7 versus a Core i7. Same company, same architecture, same stuff inside. You get the idea. One interesting and important thing for the Inspiron is for you people who are tinkerers, you actually get 2 RAM slots on the Inspiron. On the XPS 13, RAM is soldered on board. It's not upgradable. They both have an M2 slot for an SSD as well. They both have socketed Wi-Fi cards. The XPS 13 gets a bit faster Broadcom card compared to the Intel AC3165 Wi-Fi with Bluetooth card in the Inspiron. So a bit more to tinker with on the Inspiron there. battery life and chargers. Well, they both have 45-watt chargers, but the Dell XPS 13 is the more boutique-oriented one, so it actually gets a literally prettier charger from Dell. But you know what? They're both the same 45-watt charger. Nothing practically different there. In terms of battery life, well, this one gets complicated, mostly because the XPS 13 is available with a variety of CPUs all the way up to the one with Intel Iris graphics and the Core i7 that's going to use a little bit more power. And the display resolution, particularly if you're going up to that QHD plus high resolution display, that really has a big effect on battery life. So if we're going to compare 1080p versus 1080p, then battery life, we're also talking, do we have touch or non-touch here? With the non-touch XPS 13, that is the longest running model, and it's really quite impressive. 9 hours, 9.5 hours, you know. It's good stuff. The Inspiron 13, pretty much, no matter what configuration you get largely, you're going to have about a 6.5 hour runtime, which is respectable. You can push it to 7 with a little bit of power management there, not a problem. Dropping the brightness down a bit, you know, that sort of thing. The Dell XPS 13, say you go for the Core i5 and the QHD plus display, you don't even have to go for the Core i7. Just going up to the higher resolution touchscreen is going to drop the battery life around to 6.5 hours. So if you're looking at 1080p displays across the board, the XPS 13 will run longer. It actually has a higher capacity battery too. So there you have it, the Dell Inspiron 13 7000 2016 Fall Edition versus the Dell XPS 13. Both lovely laptops, both not cheap, but obviously the XPS 13 is the premium on the line. It's going to cost you more. And now you see what the extra money gets you, and hopefully you know whether it's worth it. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to watch our video reviews of both of these products and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos.